Hello, this is a little film on how to begin strength training using hand weights for anybody who is returning to exercise after surgery for breast cancer. The film is originally made for a fantastic charity that I am happy to support called Flat Friends, but is appropriate for anybody going through it. The thing that draws the Flat Friends together is we're all women who had surgery without reconstruction. If you're watching this and you want to start strength training after reconstructive surgery, please check in with your clinical teams first about how long after surgery they think you should wait before getting back into it. Once they give you the clear, this is safe to do, but we just have to be a little bit more cautious depending on the type of surgery that was done. For anybody that hasn't met me, I'm Carolyn. I'm a personal trainer and I specialise in working with people who've had cancer, all cancers. I've done this for 10 years now, at the time of making this film, and I'm a Flat Friend. I was diagnosed with breast cancer myself during the lockdown of 2020 and found Flat Friends during my own diagnosis and decision making. So I've made a film already for Flat Friends on how we could do strength training using a resistance band. This is using hand weights instead. To be honest, there are benefits one to the other. The resistance bands are light, there's no actual weight involved. They're very adaptable, but they rely on people, you have to have one in order to use it. Whereas with weights, we can substitute dumbbells for tins of beans, bottles of water. I do have a client who has done strength training with a bottle of single malt in one hand and a bottle of Advocaat in the other. So there's scope. I have another client who is learning, who is building up rather her ability to do an exercise, called the deadlift. We'll do it in a minute. She's using watering cans, big watering cans that she's gently filling more and more as she gets stronger, and using two identical cans, one in each hand, to use as her weight. So this is training with weights, but as I say, you can substitute. I'll use dumbbells, but you may be able to find something at home that you could use instead. If any of you have either hand pain, I know there's a lot of pain in the fingers, hands and wrists around women taking particularly letrozole and some of the other hormone pills, or if you have neuropathy in your hands as a result of chemo, then what you could use is something called a wrist weight. They look like this, they're like little sandbags, and they wrap so you don't have to grip. Actually, same with anybody who has, if you have painful arthritis in your hand, you put these on and you wrap them round so you don't have to grip or use the hands, but you've still got weights to use for the arms. So I'm assuming if you had breast surgery without reconstruction, I'm assuming that you are a good, clear 6 weeks since your most recent surgery. If it's not, then please wait. We have to wait for our bodies to heal before we can get going. For all of us, and how we'll warm up actually, and I'm going to warm up and keep talking. If you take your mind back, if it's not painful to do, take your mind back to the exercises that we learnt post-surgery in order to keep our shoulders moving and the muscles around the ribs. They actually, so I'm doing the ones that I learnt. Now follow me, come with me. If we do these, they actually act as a really quite useful little warm-up for the arms, shoulders, armpits, because obviously we need to be careful that we're not going to do anything that will be worrisome from a lymphedema perspective. Everything that you and I will do together is safe for lymphedema. Weight training is safe for anybody with lymphedema or with a risk of lymphedema. It has been proven to help reduce our risk of swelling. I have a little bit here that comes and goes, and I get away with all sorts of things in terms of using my own body strength and building body strength. If you're currently experiencing lymphedema, the rules absolutely are to start light, really light, lighter than you think you need to, and be consistent if you can with strength training. So for all of us, we want to be doing this kind of thing 2 or 3 times a week on non-consecutive days. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, perfect. If you have lymphedema at the moment and you're experiencing cellulitis, that's a red flag. Please don't exercise then. Pop in and either ring or talk to your breast care nurse just to make sure that there's nothing worrisome going on there. And likewise, if you're experiencing seroma, again, just check it out before you do any weight training, just to make sure that it's safe. I just need to move back a bit while I'll wash my hands. So, coming up. So post-surgery we learned to walk our arms up and down walls. This is a version of. So the little routine that I've prepared is for predominantly upper body strength, because it's what people are unsure to do. If you have frozen shoulder, by the way, again, this is safe to do, it's fine to do these moves, but what I need you to do is to not make yourself uncomfortable. There's no point. So any of the moves that we do, if it feels that your shoulder isn't as mobile as it was, just take the move as far as you can before it hurts. Stop as soon as you get near to pain. We can use strength training as a way to help rebuild what's called our range of motion, but we need to be gentle, steady, consistent. The secret to building strength is a lot to do with consistency. Start light, learn the moves well. You have to push yourself, we don't want to start light and never move on, but broadly, consistency is one of the most helpful things that you can do. Here and round, if you could, keeping the elbows really close to the ribs so you can feel them against your side. Okay. These moves are predominantly, as I say, upper body. There are some lower body moves in a minute. I tend to, you and I have only just met, with people I don't know, I tend to be very cautious about doing anything with the core muscles that involves bending the back or twisting, because I want these sessions to be safe and comfortable for anybody either who has anything going on with her back, but particularly if anybody has cancer that has spread to the bones. We have to be really cautious with the spine and look after it. So what we can do, instead of anything that would really bend, twist or arch the back, instead what we do is we do moves where we move the limbs, but against that we keep our body, our torso, we keep that still. And that in itself can help us to build or rebuild what you call core stability, so strengthening the muscles around the middle and into the back, so that they can support us and hold us despite us moving in multiple directions and lifting weights. So what we do together is around strength, shoring up our core stability, rather than anything, as I say, that could strain or sprain the back of the spine. Okay, so I've got some weights. As I say, you could start with a tin of beans in each hand. I know plenty of people that have. I've got 2 sets of weights today. I've got some light ones, light for me, and some medium weight ones, but please do start light and see how you get on. With all of these moves, we're going to do them as well as we can in terms of posture and technique. We're going to try and do 10, and we're going to try to learn to find weights that are appropriate, so that by the time we've done each move 10 times or thereabouts, our muscles are starting to feel tired, because that would be the kind of level of resistance that we need and the level of repetition that we need in order to build strength. So if we start with all of these, start with something light first, see how it feels. If you take a weight in each hand and the weight is horizontal, palms are facing forward, and we push, okay? So purposefully, I'm going to do almost all of this routine sitting down, so that anybody who would want or need to do this in a chair knows that this is fine and helpful and safe to do in a chair. I'll show you in a minute what I'm actually sitting on, because the first 2 moves we could do differently. So this is called a chest press, and I'm keeping the shoulders and the neck relaxed and pushing forward, okay? So The reason I'm not sitting on a chair, I'm bouncing. So I'm sitting on what's called a Swiss ball or a gym ball. Big round, let me show you. Big round squishy ball. Okay. They're good office chairs. A lot of people have them and they don't know what to do with them. I use mine as an office chair because they make you hold your tummy and your back. Again, they're really good for what I was talking about, core stability. But also, I want to be able to show you something. So we just did a chest press here. If you had a Swiss ball, you could do it here. You could do it lying and pushing up. And then your body will use, your muscles will have to use gravity differently. Similarly, having said you could do all of this routine in a chair, you could lie on the floor and do chest press, and it just gives you a little bit more oomph to push against rather than being upright. Similarly, and with a really light weight, if we come wide, hang on, you can't see one of my hands, if we come wide and in, okay? So elbows are slightly soft and we are squeezing the front of the shoulders and the chest muscles. So we're trying to use the pectoral muscles to get them to lead this, get them to pull the arms forward. Now again, I'm deliberately doing this seated, but you could lie on the floor or indeed on a bouncy Swiss ball and do this, and you'll feel it slightly differently. You'll have to work against gravity differently and it becomes a different challenge. But what I like is that it works here, it works the front of the shoulder. When you're on the floor, I certainly feel a real stretch through my mastectomy scar doing this. It's a nice one to try and open up the shoulders a bit. Okay, we will give the shoulders a little roll, especially if they're tiring. If we just pause between moves. When your butt muscles ache, it's because they're building up something called lactic acid, and lactic acid tells the brain it's tired. So we just need it to seep away again, and then suddenly you'll feel that you might do something else. So a little pause is fine. Take the weights right above the head with your palms facing forward, and we're going to lower them, okay? Coming back up and down. So elbows are slightly soft again, slightly bent. We're keeping the neck and shoulders relaxed. It's really tempting to kind of hunch. We're trying to keep everything relaxed, and we're just lowering the weights and then pushing back up, but the weights are traveling in a kind of arc. Again, 10 or so. I'm particularly rubbish at remembering how many I've done when I'm talking, so bear with me if I'm a couple at either side, but broadly 10 or 12 will do it. And if you know you could easily do a dozen of each move with a particular weight, then that's the time to think about making it harder and building up the level of resistance. Okay, weights are here, and again the palms are facing forward and we push straight up. Okay, you want to use your breath, by the way, it doesn't tend to be so much of an issue as the weights are light, but as they start to build up, we would always exhale as we exert. So in the case of this exercise, we're going to breathe out as we push up. And just for clarity, because sometimes I know it can look a little bit confused, let me show you. We did one exercise where we were here, so we were lowering the weights wide and they were travelling in an arc, and then this one they're going up and straight down. It just works the shoulders slightly differently. So one was there, other one is here. Okay, just need to move back a little bit, and then sitting tall, roll the shoulders back, bring the arms up to shoulder height. Don't need to go any higher. It's a relatively small move, this. Again, neck's relaxed, shoulders are relaxed, and if you want to Exhale as you bring the weight up. A couple more. Fabulous. Okay. We're going to do a couple of moves that are ostensibly a rowing movement, really helpful after breast surgery. We tend to lose strength from our upper back, and we tend to find that our chest muscles, they shorten, our shoulders hunch forward a little bit. And if you've only had surgery on one side, what I see an awful lot, and I do it, even though I know better, on the surgery side, the shoulder dips down and rolls in, and you get this kind of protective posture. I see it all the time. So we're doing moves that will help to stretch the chest and to rebuild strength in the upper back, such that they will allow us to spend more of our time with better posture where the shoulders are rolled back and down. Okay, so rowing moves are really helpful for that. We're going to do something called a bent over row. Now it's good in a chair. Let me show you. Can you sit or stand tall? And then we're going to lean forward. So from here, tip forward, but we're going to keep the back really straight. We're not going to arch the back. Don't look at the ground. It can help you to. It can help encourage you to bend your back, bend your neck. We want to stick the chin and the chest forward and come forward, and then we're going to draw our weights really narrowly. Elbows are going to skim the ribs and come back. Okay. So in terms of how that looks from the front, it's here and back. Okay. So you'll feel this in your shoulder blades. You'll feel this in your upper back. You could do this standing if you'd be more comfortable. If I was doing this standing, I would stand one foot in front of the other just to feel more stable. But it's still, the art is to not bend the back. It's to lean forward but bring the chin and the chest forward first. Okay? But elbows are still travelling narrowly. They're just skimming past the ribs. From there, we're going to take our weights, and again, in a chair, you need to kind of straddle the chair a bit. You need a bit of space for the weights to move, but you can do this seated or standing. Again, roll the shoulders back and sit or stand tall. Lengthen your back, and then with the weights near to each other, we're going to draw them up. Okay, I'm going to come a bit closer, you can see what I'm doing. Gradually rolling away from me. So here and up, okay? So your weights could almost touch. And what we're doing here is the elbows are travelling upwards before the weights. Some people will do this and they use the elbows, where we're trying to use the shoulders and actually the muscles in the upper mid-back. You even feel some movement around your ribs doing this, okay? It's called an upright row. And it's particularly helpful. I'm making this film on a really hot day as the summer holidays approach. And this move is what you would use to pick up a big suitcase with both hands. Okay. Can you bring your elbows to be narrow again? We did something like this when we warmed up, but with a weight in our hand, it becomes much more difficult. Helpful. Elbows are, you need a really light weight or even no weight for this. Elbows are right in by the ribs and we come round, okay? So this is very much about simply only rotating the upper arm within the shoulder socket. Okay, so you'll feel, this always makes me feel the pointy bits on the shoulder blades, and you feel them moving as if they were coming around to point against each other, towards each other. Okay, so small movement. Again, if you can, keep the neck relaxed. And this is another one that if you're doing it well, you're sticking your chest out. Okay. from here, a move that is very much about strengthening our shoulders, but a relatively complex move. So we did a move already with our palms facing forward, taking the weights right up. We're going to start the other way, so the palms of our hands are going towards our face, and this involves lifting and twisting at the same time. So we're going to gradually twist the weights outwards so they disappear off the camera, and then bring them back in. If I come lower so you can see the full journey of my hands. So it's from here and up. So the weights, whilst going upwards, are twisting 180 degrees. This challenges the 3 big muscles in each shoulder called the deltoids, and apparently was invented by Arnold Schwarzenegger, and it was one of the moves he used to build his shoulders. I promise you, you'd have to try really hard to build shoulders as big as Schwarzenegger. Good luck if you can. Some women get frightened, they get nervous about weight training because they think they're going to get really bulky. I think there's nothing wrong with having good, strong muscles, but if you're going to try to build big ones, it does take a lot of work, so fear not. Okay, and then our next move, oh here, triceps. I'm coming side on so you can see. With both weights, we're going to hold them here by the front of the armpit. This one again works well if you tip forward, either standing or seated, but again with a straight back. And then without moving the upper arm, this is all in the elbow. Okay, we're going to let the weights curl round in a little, almost half circle. What you'll feel is the muscles on the upper part of the back of your arm, your triceps. So can you squeeze the back of your arm as you're curling these back? And then next move is a press up. So I said I wanted to make this routine good for anybody in a chair. You need your chair to not be able to rock or roll backwards. So if it's on little wheels, or in my case a bouncy ball on carpet, just make sure that it's somehow that it's secure. So one way into a press up is, as I say, from seated, is to work against be against a worktop. I'm going against a bookcase. I'm keeping my back straight, and I'm going to sink down, come back up. Okay, so just this move. The trick with press up, however you're going to do it, is to not bend your back. Okay, so all of the move is coming from you. It's this shape face on, so your elbows are going wide and then pushing up. There are different ways of doing press ups, but the way I would normally start, if we're doing rehab after cancer surgery, martial artists do them like this, they're much harder. We're going wide. Okay, if you're able or would prefer to do this standing, then we take ourselves to be around arm's length away from the wall, and if you put your hands on the wall at shoulder height, go on your tiptoes, and then we come in and out. But what we're doing is making sure there isn't any bend in our back or our hips. Okay, we are keeping the back straight, including your neck if you can. Temptation is always to look down. Try and keep the neck in a straight line all the way from your ankles up to your head. If that feels really doable, we take a tiny, and I mean tiny, step further back. We drop the hands a little lower, and now we try from here. And the thing with press up is you can start here, and then when you're ready to build this up, so you do it on your hands and knees on the floor, and eventually maybe working to the point that you take your shins off the floor, and that we get to the point of doing full press ups with our feet only on the floor, not the knees. Takes a little bit of time, but can be worth it now. I just need to change chairs a minute, you'll see why. So I'm going to get a more stable chair because the ball won't be any good for what we're now going to do. That was all upper body. In terms of what we might do for our lower body strength, it's basically squats, you know. So if we take 2 light weights. I'm going to hold them against the chest. So if I was wanting to stay in a chair, what I would do was take my posture so that my feet were shoulder width apart, and I would stand up here and sit back down. Okay? I do apologise, I've got a really creaky chair. But what we would do is sit down and stand up. If it's too much with the weights, then obviously do it with just the weight of your body. And then how that looks without the chair, it's basically sitting on an invisible chair. So again, feet are shoulder width apart, and just as if we were going to sit on a chair and stand. Okay? Try to keep your back straight. It does need to bend a little bit to accommodate this movement, but what we're trying to do is not really bend it, and particularly not bend forward. So if you can, look ahead, just to try and keep you aligned a little better. When we're doing squats, if you imagine the saying, dig your heels in, as you're bringing your body weight up, try and press your heels down into the ground. It gets the big muscles in your buttocks going. Makes a squat more manageable. Okay, so as before, 10 or 12, probably felt like a bit more than that actually. And then we're going to do something called a deadlift, which again could be done in the chair as long as you promise me you're not going to bend your back. But other than that, so for several of these moves, what we want to do is this thing with our shoulders where we roll them back and down and hold it. We're not going to hunch, we're not going to allow the shoulders to come forward or the upper back to bend at all. So roll your shoulders back and keep tension between your shoulder blades. Bend your knees a little bit, and then if you think of your hip as a hinge, dive your chin and chest forward. Don't need to go too low, but let the weights dangle in front of you and then come up. Okay, so no bend in the back, just going down but keeping the knees soft, otherwise this is uncomfortable on the backs of the legs, on the hamstrings. So we're taking these weights down towards the floor, not necessarily all the way there at all, and they want to be relatively near to your shins rather than kind of that angle, but we're tipping forward, just bending the hip. This does a lot, this move, it's a clever one. It's actually used in the Olympics. So we're doing proper weight training, ladies, already, but we're starting light. Okay, make sure it's just, let's say the knees are soft, but the work is in the hips, the work is in the buttocks here. Okay, we're then going to go wide. So again, this is fine in a chair. If you wanted to, we're going to hold the weights against the chest. If you don't like them against the chest, that's fine. So if we straddle the chair wide and bring the, you can't see my feet, but your toes are pointing outwards, not forwards, and we can stand from there and sit, okay? So in terms of if you're using a chair, this will feel like you get less height because the feet are wider, you're not going to come up and down as much. But you'll feel this on the inner thigh and you might feel it on the outside of the buttock. Okay, so how it looks without a chair, and from the side is here. Remember, toes are pointing outwards and we're sitting back and up. Okay, so again, trying not to bend the back, trying to keep contact with the floor of the heels, driving them down and coming up. You might feel this right underneath your bum, right deep in the glutes. This works different part of the gluteal muscles compared to the 2 exercises before this. Okay, last one. I'm actually going to take the camera down to the floor to show you. It's a way of using the feet, working the lower leg. We've started at the top and worked down. I don't know if you can see that, but engage belly muscles, hold on to something if you need to, if your balance isn't so good or if you've got neuropathy in your feet. But other than that, we are rolling up. Okay, so keeping the balls of the feet on the floor and cupping up onto tiptoes. From the front, we're rolling up, okay? Temptation is to try and come really high and wobble, and it can make the ankles roll outwards. You want to try and keep everything aligned, so you're not rolling your feet inwards or outwards. Obviously I'm doing this with nothing in my hands, but you could hold a weight. You could hold a weight against your chest. Okay, and again, get to double figures. Don't overdo this one. The calf muscles and the Achilles tendon that attaches into the ankle, they can be sensitive, so we're asking them to do enough work but not too much. Okay, and that, flat friends, is about 30 minutes of strength training, with starting with light weights. As I say, the key here is consistency, but when you're ready, build up the weights, build up gradually, safely, but do keep building. Have fun.